everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I had some fun in my Dilutions art journal and I'd like for you to come along with me. So let's get started. I started out choosing some dictionary pages that I'm just going to use as a background for my 2-page spread. So I just started by gluing those down with matte medium, and I just wanted total coverage with the book pages, dictionary pages. I wasn't picky about which pages they were or what definitions were on them. This is from an old English-French dictionary, so chances are if it's the French pages, I don't know what they say anyway. So I'm just going to get those all down and dry them off, and then we can start having some fun here. So that's what I'm doing. There's several sped up sections in this video today, and I'm just leaving them with no music. I usually add music, but we've kind of discussed this before, and I guess some people like the music and other people don't, so I'm just going to kind of alternate, I think. Try to please everybody. So today I'm not adding music. I'm just doing this voiceover, and if there's a section where it's sped up and I don't have anything to say at that particular moment, it will just be without music and without me talking. So I just hope you enjoy this video. This was a fun project to do. I did several things different than I normally do, and I'll point those out along the way. This is one, really, the background covering the whole thing with the same kind of text from the same book. I don't generally do. I usually, if I use book text, I use other kinds of papers with it, and I use text from several different books. So this was something that I just thought about doing and did that I hadn't done before. I'm sure somebody else has probably done this, but it was a really quick way to coffee dye a piece of tissue paper. So I have this piece of craft colored tissue paper, and I just laid it down on my glass mat and wet it down with my fine mist spray bottle. And then I have these little individual packages of instant coffee granules, and I scrunched it up really, really good while it was still in the unopened package, just to get it into more of a powder consistency and less of the big granules that you normally get. And so I'm just sprinkling it on to the wet tissue paper, and then I sprayed it again with water, and I'm just going for a kind of a vintage coffee dyed spotted aged paper look. So I just folded one side into the middle and kind of scrunched it together with the water, and then did the same thing with the other side. And where I could feel the larger granules, I just kind of pushed on it until it dissolved a little bit better into the water. The hardest part about this was the drying. It was really, really soaked and sticking to my glass mat. So it was hard to get it dried without tearing it, which I guess it wouldn't have mattered if it tore a little bit, but I just kept moving it from end to end, picking it up and sticking my dryer underneath it. This is really, really sped up. But anyways, it's all dry. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to scrunch this all up and get some really good wrinkles going so that the paper really does look old. And my hope was that once I put it down with the matte medium, I would be able to see some of that book text through the tissue paper. It's pretty thin tissue paper. So that was my intent. But if you're looking for a quick way to coffee dye some paper, that worked really, really well. If you just need like one piece, you know, or a couple of pieces, pretty quick. So then I'm just laying it down on top of the journal and smoothing it out a little bit, seeing where I want to fit it. So then I just go in with the matte medium. I'm just going to cover one side at a time. If you're a Mod Podge fan and you've never tried fluid matte medium, give it a try. It's more expensive than Mod Podge, but it's way less sticky. I find it much easier to work with than Mod Podge. So I just laid the tissue down on that right hand page and I'm smoothing it out with my hand first, and I want some wrinkles left in it, which is why I scrunched it up to begin with. But I'm just trying to get good contact with the matte medium first with my hand, and then I'll press it down better with the brush as I go over the top of it with the matte medium then. Pressing it down into that center gutter so that the book opens and it won't rip. And I didn't worry too much if I had a little bit of overhang, which there is, what you can't really see it because it's off that bottom edge. And I just, after I dried it, I just trimmed it off. So then I dried that side before I started to glue the other side. That way I didn't have to worry about the paper moving or shifting out of place. And then I just did exactly the same thing on the other side. Matte medium, smoothed it down, and then matte medium on the top. And dried it. So then I thought maybe some lace would be good on this page, just to stay with the kind of vintage feel of so I used heavy gel matte medium to put the lace down, and that worked really well. It stuck right away and it's not going anywhere. So I just spread it on with a palette knife so that I got a nice even layer without any lumps in it, and stuck the lace in. And that is some vintage lace that I've had for a really long time. I don't know if you guys, you probably don't know because I don't think I've ever told you, but I've been an antiques dealer for years and years. I started, I think, back in, oh gosh, the early 80s. And I've had a couple of different physical antique shops over the years. Now I sell vintage stuff. I have a website where I sell vintage. Most of my antiques have been sold. But, yeah, so anyways, I have a, stockpile of old linens and a lot of old things. So I've just been starting to use some of the things in my art. So I mixed up some of that instant coffee with water, and I'm just brushing it on the lace to age it and help it go with the rest of the page better, because it's just a little too light and bright. Got to bring the grunge, right? And I didn't realize that that brush had a little bit of turquoisey blue paint in it, but it ended up not really mattering because the brown mixed with the turquoise turned kind of green, and you'll see in a few minutes that I added green to the page, so it worked. But that lace really soaked up the coffee mixture. I ended up mixing up more, like twice over, to color both pieces of lace at the top and the bottom. I'm just showing you what I did on the piece at the top though. And the bottom one is basically the same thing. But I really like the way it turned out. I think it looks pretty cool. Goes really good with the page. But you can see that kind of greenish tinge. I'm trying to get every last drop of coffee out of that little container where I mixed it up so I don't have to mix more. And I think it ended up being just the right amount. So now I've got 4 smallish, I think they're maybe 6-inch paper doilies. And I took some burnt sienna acrylic paint and watered it way down. As you can see, I added a lot of water. And then just took a sponge and just kind of sponged and whisked across those doilies. If they get very wet, they just fall apart. So I was trying to be careful and go lightly and just kind of sponge them on. And once they were kind of dry, I went back and darkened them up a little bit, and then I set them aside to dry. So now I have some Tattered Angels color wash in green tea. I love this stuff. It's just, you can use it for so many things. It's really fluid. It's just basically kind of like colored water, but it works really well. It's very transparent, and it's a wash in a bottle, and it's great. And I love this color. So I thought I need to bring some color onto the page, and I thought the green would be really nice, so I went with it and just kind of dabbed it. I started out around the outside edges, and then I kind of went onto the lace and around those little, I took some little pieces of ephemera and put them in little groupings in those corners. And then I brought the dried doilies back in and spattered those with the green color wash as well. So things are starting to come together now. I love that green against the burnt sienna. I think it's a really pretty combo. And this is a little washed out. I don't know if I bumped my light or what, but the colors are just kind of washed out here in this section. So then I just used the matte medium again to glue those doilies down. Being really careful not to tear them. The first one I did, the entire center part just fell right out because I got it too wet. So I'm being careful. And that little area where it overlaps the lace, I ended up having to use the heavy gel matte medium to get it to stick to the lace. It just wouldn't stick with the fluid. So, and then just put the second one down, overlap, excuse me, overlapping the first. And the same thing on the other side. Just shifted them up a little bit higher on the left side. Because I actually have a plan for this page. I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm going next. So I had gathered some ephemera, some old paper, those Tim Holtz Instant Ancestors photographs, and I had stuck them, just temporarily stuck them together using a glue stick just to get them in the configuration that I wanted. So now I'm permanently gluing the pieces together here with the heavy gel. I wanted that book page, the piece from the book, underneath the photograph, and then I wanted that little piece of ephemera in front of it, and it was just, I was having trouble getting that to work for me, but finally figured it out. Sometimes the simplest things confuse me. There we go. That's what I wanted. And it's the lady's turn. Basically the same thing, except with a woman's photograph instead of another man. Different ephemera, but still kind of the same. And that little piece of fabric is actually from a Civil War quilt. It was a cutter and it was falling apart. So I just have those little pieces of that brown polka dot. I think at one point it was black, but the dyes from back then weren't color fast and they faded and changed colors, so the black has turned kind of brown, which worked perfect for this page. So they are ready to go into the journal. Just some last minute fussying with the glue. Get everything the way I want it. I did notice when I got about halfway through this that the last 2 or 3 2-page spreads that I've done in this Dilutions journal are very similar. So I need to find a new groove, I think. I'm taking that color wash now and just spattering some green across those little collage bundles. And I really like the way that green dried on the photograph. The finish on that paper it's a little bit shiny, and I think that's why I got just the spots of color just turned out really cool on the photographs. So I was happy about that. Almost look like alcohol inks. So I'm just finding their spots and gluing them down. I like the doilies underneath them though. I don't use the paper doilies very often in my artwork, but coloring them and spattering them kind of brought them more into the genre that I use, just kind of grungy, vintage. So yeah, I like the way they look. They're a nice little backdrop for those little collage bundles. So just making sure all the edges are glued down well. And I have a brown Stabilo all pencil, and I'm just going to go around all the edges of the collage pieces, and then I'll activate it with just some water on a brush and just give a little bit of a shadow behind those collage pieces, and it just helps bring them forward a little bit and makes them more of a focal point. So here's one of those spots where I don't really have anything to add or to say, but I'm not going to put music to it, so I'll just let you watch in silence. So I will just take this opportunity to thank you guys for being faithful subscribers and watching my videos. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all your kind comments. If you ever have any questions about anything, feel free to comment and ask. I try to check comments every time I upload a new video, but sometimes they don't show up under the video, and I find when I go into YouTube Studio that there are comments there that I haven't seen. So sometimes my reply might be a day or two late or after you leave a comment, but I'm always looking for your comments so that I can comment back to you. So if you've gotten this far with me, thanks for sticking around. I appreciate that. And I switched to my black Stabilo all pencil and just going around those little pieces that I put in the corners with the black. I just thought it would be kind of an extra added touch to have a darker shadow behind them. And I like the way that looks too. I just love my Stabilo pencils. Then I have some archival ink in sepia and my favorite text stamp. And I'm just going to add some text here and there and everywhere in the background. And because the book text in the way back background is black, that's kind of why I went with the brown text, the ink for the text stamp rather. That way it doesn't detract from the little bit that you see of the book text that's peeking through. They both kind of hold up on their own. So I just basically, I didn't cover, I guess I did kind of cover that whole background around the figures. I hit all the spots, let's put it that way. And then as I got to the end, I thought, well, I'm going to bring it across onto some of the focal points too, because it's more noticeable there, just little bits. And I have an old children's book from the 1800s that is literally just falling to pieces. The pages are so brittle, but I found there was a poem in there about temperance, and I just cut out two stanzas from the poem that kind of went with this page, I think. I hope you were able to read it. I tried to hold it there for a while so you could maybe see it. I have some still pictures at the end where you'll be able to read it better. So that's why I called this the Temperance Couple, is because of the text that I just added. So there's all the pieces parts all put together. I hope you like it. It's one of my favorites in this book. I really enjoyed doing it, and I think it came together nicely. I love the colors. I think it's just kind of playful with the poem that's on there because it's so out of date, but yet kind of still relevant. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up and maybe share it with a friend or your Facebook groups. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I'd really appreciate it if you did that. And in the meantime, go make some art. Bye.